What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the channel. In today's video, we're going to be installing some helper airbags on my 2018 GMC Sierra 2500. It does have the Duramax in it. It also has a 7.5-inch lift and some 37s. Now, when we go towing, whether it's my camper or car hauler, it does have a bit of a sag, especially when I add some additional weight in the back. So we have helper airbags. I've had helper airbags on several of my previous trucks and I just love them. Not only do they help the ride, they get rid of the sag and it gets rid of like bounce and all that when you're towing a camper. Let's talk about why I went with the Rough Country kit. I know there are better kits out there. I know there's the Airlift and the Firestone setup. If money was of no concern, I probably would have went with the Firestone kit just because it seemed like the best quality, and the other reason was that the way it's designed, it's not compromised when we go to lift up the truck. And what I mean by that is the airlift setup, the way the airlift is designed is the airbag has a bracket up top and it's mounted to a bracket on the bottom. So what happens is if you go to lift up the truck and the frame starts to separate from the axle, then the airbag in the middle is compromised. I know Airlift went ahead and added a cradle design so that it could separate when you do lift up the frame from the axle. However, they charge a pretty dime for every little piece that's additional to their kit. Firestone is kind of the same thing. If money was of no concern, I probably would have went with the Firestone kit. It seemed like the best one out of them. I'm the kind of guy that likes to get the best bang for the buck, and I think Rough Country is where it's at. Plus, they have a limited lifetime warranty, and I guess we'll see about that if this kit was to ever get damaged. With Rough Country, this right here, this plus the spacer is the same price. It's like $350. And then the cradle kit is an additional $40. You cannot beat that. You know, with Firestone, you're looking at like $600 just for the kit alone. It was like $600 or $555, I can't remember. And then an additional like $120 for the spacer. And with the Airlift, it was the same thing. The kit alone was in the $400 or $500 range, and the spacer and cradle kit was a pretty penny. So all this from Rough Country with a lifetime warranty was around $400 and some change. So you can't beat that. Now, I do have my complaints. I do have my issues. So far, we are into the install, and it's been kind of a nightmare. If you're into puzzles, well, here's a puzzle for you. They give you this kit, and they pretty much give you 2 or 3 pages of some sort of installation guide, right? So you get this, pretty much some disclaimer stuff, and then here's all the parts that are in it. And then right here, you've got a graphic of how it looks when it's installed, and this graphic right here is what's been super helpful to me. This stuff on the back is pretty useless, pretty much letting you know some generic data. And if you were to install this kit on a truck that has a 5th wheel setup, what to do versus how to install it with the brackets. Pretty useless in my opinion. So Rough Country, if you're watching this, you need to step up your game on that. I paid for this kit with my own money, didn't ask for a discount or anything, just for the record. I know Rough Country has some videos online on this kit, but it's pretty much one of those videos where it's like, hey, we have this and it's compatible with this, and take these measurements to let you know if this is compatible. Kind of useless information in my opinion. So let's get to it. I'm going to try to be as detailed as possible with this install. I am learning with you as you're watching this. So I'm going to ride the struggle bus here for you. So it'll be an easy install for you, I hope. So first off, my apologies. We are working in the front yard because earlier when I started this project, I was watching the kids. It was a bit of a struggle bus going to the pole barn and back, grabbing tools and grabbing the jack and whatnot. But it's okay. It's a lovely day out. We're going to enjoy this. First thing I did, propped up the truck from the rear hitch to get us some additional space between the frame and the axle. I could probably take the wheels off, but you know, with the lift kit, it does kind of help me get in there and get to the bolts that I need to. What I did was, over here, there's a heat shield for the exhaust. There's a 13mm bolt up here. Take that off. And then on the bottom Right here, there's a bracket for your brake line, 13 mil, take that off. A 13 millimeter bolt right here, take that off, and then this bracket comes off, and then there's a jounce or a bump stop in here, and to get that off, you just take a screwdriver, a flathead or a pry bar, just pry it in there and then push it out, or pry it out, probably the right term. And then on the driver's side, let's see, there's a 13 millimeter bolt right here, take that out, separate that bracket from the bottom cradle here, and then get rid of that bump stop right there. And then over here, I'm pointing in that general area, there's a 13 millimeter bolt holding this hanger. The first step I would recommend before installing this bracket onto the actual airbag is get your 90-degree air fitting, or this coupler right here, and get you some quality Teflon tape. I know they do provide you some Teflon tape, but the one they provided was just garbage. When I used it, it just kept leaking air, so I went ahead and just used what I have right here. This is Mega Tape, gas and water line, good quality stuff. Pretend this bracket isn't there. You're going to get the fitting. Well, first you're going to get some Teflon tape on the threads, then secure this with a 14 millimeter. And then once you get that on there, you can go ahead and plug your airline in like that. Right, and then on the other side of the airline, get your fitting and fill it up with like 20 or 25 psi, and then grab yourself some soapy solution or some sort of spray. I have some interior detail right here. Just kind of spray it around the fitting right there, just to make sure there was no bubbling. And once you verify that there's no leaks, you can go ahead and just push on this coupler like that, and it comes right out. And then you can go ahead and install this bracket. So make sure you install this coupler first, because as you can see, this opening right here, it's kind of a challenge trying to get a crescent wrench in there. This is a 13, but you get the idea. Once you get this installed, we're gonna go ahead and get this bracket installed, and you'll use these flat-ended bolts, and it's an Allen key, 7/32 is the size, right? And what you want to do is get some thread lock. Probably don't have to, but since I had it around, added a little bit of thread lock to the threads and went ahead and got it nice and secure. All right, so one of the challenging parts of this, because we're installing this with the spacer, is the orientation of how the spacer gets added to the whole setup, right? If you look closely, there's a small slant on it, and I was trying to determine which way does the slant go, right? And the best way, or the best method I went ahead with, was just kind of mock it all up together and get an idea of how it would install underneath the truck, right? So if you look at that frame, it's pretty, well, somewhat straightish. And this is the passenger side. You can see that's not looking pretty good, right? And I have the open end, or the taller end, facing that way. But look at what happens now. So if I turn this, I put the bigger end facing this way, and then I get this back on it. Look at that. That looks a lot more straight compared to how it looked when that was rotated. So I'm gonna go with this mock-up and this orientation, get that installed on the passenger side, and I'm gonna do the same thing on the driver's side. And a good telltale on these right here, there's a little notch on the open-ended side. Where's the notch? Right here. So the notch on the taller side, so I'm gonna have the notch facing the back of the truck. Just went ahead and installed the cradle to the spacer, and with the cradle kit, they supply you a 14 millimeter bolt with a nut and a washer. So I've got the washer on first, and then the nut, and then 14 on both sides, and got it secured down. All right, so next thing I did was get the spacer installed to the bottom bracket. And one thing that I kind of did to help me out as far as, you know, keeping stuff separate is get yourself a table and then have it lined up with your truck. All the driver side things, put it on the left side of the table, passenger side on the right side. As far as the brackets go, the round edge goes towards the center of the truck. So pretend that's the back of the truck. That's how it's going to get installed. As far as hardware goes, you're going to use your flat-headed bolts right here, and you'll need a 7/32 Allen key for this one. Once you get this through the whole assembly, up top, you're going to get your flat washer over it, then your lock washer on top of that, and then get yourself a 14mm nut on top of that, and then secure it with a 14mm. All right, so I've got the kit fully installed. All that's left to do is for me to secure some 12mm on the back for the air fittings. Due to the lack of instructions, this was no walk in the park. Rough country, if you're watching this, you need to up your game with the instructions. I'm gonna go ahead and walk you through what I did. This was a learning experience for me, so apologies on the format of this video. Regardless, I'm hoping that, you know, just me showing you the angles that I'm about to show you here, this should still benefit you in a way for when you go to install your kit. And I hope I installed it the correct way. Once you get your airbag set up, all assembled, then we go ahead and get it installed on the truck. So down here, the first thing you want to do is actually lift up the truck from the axle. So I've got the jack lifting up on the rear hitch. And then we'll start with the passenger side. I went ahead and got the bottom bracket installed on first. The bottom bracket was already assembled with the spacer and the cradle. And then set it in place, get this 13mm threaded on first, and then you get this 13mm threaded on second, right? And also one thing to note, on these brackets, there was a little ear that I just went ahead and cut off. You could try to bend it out of place with some pliers. I just cut it off because I had my little cutting wheel. So thread it on, and then thread on this one, and you can see the ear that I cut off right there. Once you get both sides threaded on, then you can go ahead and tighten it down. And then you can go ahead and feed the top section through it, right? So with this lifted up in the air, you can get this fed through. Keep in mind of the air fitting on the back side, you don't want to get that touching the frame. Here, I'll show you guys that angle. So when you install this, so this is the back of the frame. Make sure you are clear of this fitting right here, because you don't want this piece bumping into this fitting and breaking it. So you can see how much clearance there is between the frame and the fitting, right? Once you get that guided into place, go ahead and get your U-bolts guided into place, get them through the holes, and then you go ahead and thread on your 14mm nut on all four. Once you have that all assembled, go ahead and drop the truck back down, get it seated well in the cradle, and then you tighten it down, the 14s. And then once you get that all tightened down, don't forget there's a 13mm bolt that you got to secure back down for this heat shield. And then Rough Country provides you this heat shield right here to protect this whole assembly from the exhaust heat. So get that installed, and then you've got these two clamps, and I believe it's an 8mm or a flathead screwdriver to secure the clamps. Okay, so the driver's side was a bit of a challenge, and looking at the way the airbag is sitting, I'm not too thrilled with this angle, but I kind of had no choice. And I'll show you guys what I mean in a second. It was a very tight fit on for this this bolt right here. I actually had to drop this what is this, the shield for the fuel tank, but it was fairly easy. You just have 3 13mm. So you got this one, and then there's a couple others. Take those off, and this just pries down and pries off. Fairly easy. It's actually probably not a bad idea to get this off to get all the debris out. But once you get this off, then you can get to that bolt. But so underneath on the driver's side, okay, same thing. You want to get this installed first, the bottom section, and then you go ahead and feed that 13mm through. Had to cut off this ear right here, and then you get these top section installed, and you know, just careful of the air fitting. There's the hanger piece, right? So what you want to do is get that hanger installed before you get the U-bolt installed over the frame, right? Once you get the hanger installed with the 13mm, then you can get the U-bolt over it. But also keep in mind, there are some let's see, I don't know if you see that U-bolt right there. So this U-bolt, make sure you get it on the inside of these there's these brake lines right here. So brake line, I don't know if I'm capturing it, but make sure you get it on the inside of the brake line, on the outside of the frame. You don't want to get the U-bolt over the actual brake lines. You will damage them. And then same thing on this side. Make sure you clear this this wiring harness. Here, let's see if I can zoom out and give you guys an idea of how I had this. So hanger first with the 13 mil, get the U-bolt over, feed it through, and then same thing as the other side. Secure the 14s once you get this seated. And then just to show you guys how this cover right here. So like I said, once you get the 13 mils removed, they're just hanging on by these like teeth. So you just swing it out this way, bring it up, and it falls right down. Super easy to take off and install. And then this line right here, pry it back into that hanger. Also, this hanger, once I installed the 13 mil, I went ahead and pushed this hanger out that way. I used a pry bar and just kind of like pried it out to clear this, to clear the top bracket of the airbag. One other thing I forgot to mention, once I got this all installed, went ahead and get the bottom brackets installed on both sides. And to do that, you just get these, they give you these bolts, and there's like a square head right here that fits into this like rectangular opening, and that's what holds it while you secure this 14 mil on both sides. So secure that down on both sides, and then we can go ahead and start getting the airlines ran. So for the airlines, you want separate airlines. You want, you know, one for this side and then one for the other side. Just go ahead and push it through, and then I ran it along. I basically followed this harness to the back, and then I didn't take my spare tire off. You can't really see it, but it's following that harness, and then it's right here, and then following the harness all the way. And I'll show you guys once we get to the passenger side. So on the passenger side, I've got the airline right there, and then it's following, let's see if we can see it right here. There's that like ABS line. I've got it going over that. I'll go ahead and add a zip tie right there, and then just have it going above the frame. You can't really see it here. Actually, you can kind of see it there. So this is the spare tire. It's right in there. It goes over the frame, and they both go to right here, and I'll show you guys exactly where they go on the back. So Rough Country does provide you this cutting tool, and how this works is you just get the line within the tool, and then with your fingers you just press down, and it gives it a nice clean cut. Right, if I could get it to focus. So on the back, this is how I have the airlines ran. I went ahead and used a 5/16 drill bit right here. Got one for the passenger side, and then one for the driver's side. You want to have them on separate lines. I wouldn't wire them in together. I've read online that if you put them together on one fitting and you're driving, there's a tendency that the air will bounce back and forth between the two airbags. So that's why you want them on separate lines. I went ahead and filled them up to 5 psi on both sides, and we're good to drive. Without a load, I think it's recommended to have at least 5 or 10 psi. All right, guys, so that pretty much wraps up how I installed this Rough Country helper airbag setup on my 2018 GMC Sierra 2500. If you have any questions or comments, go ahead and drop them in the comment section down below. If I did install anything wrong, feel free to let me know, and I will do my best to correct it. I'll go ahead and insert a link to the part in the description. Hopefully this video benefits you. I know it would probably benefit someone like me if I was to redo this, or if I never did this. Anyways, go ahead and wrap it up. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to do more of this kind of content. And with that being said, we'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you guys for watching.